Good morning, William. How are you, my man?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me.
Hey, Billy. Are you go by Billy or William these days?
My birth certificate is William. My credits is William, and when I'm in trouble with my mother, and I'm about 9 years old, I'm William. But other than that, I'm Billy.
Everyone else calls you Billy. All right. You're going to be in Be My Valentine, which premieres Saturday on the Hallmark Channel. What is this exactly?
Yeah, Hallmark's on a roll. They did like 30 films last year, and they've got slated for this year another 30 or 40. They're doing a lot of cool original content, and some of it more cutting edge than the hallmark of your granddaddy kind of thing. And they're doing some interesting, cool pieces for actors. And this is Be My Valentine. It comes out this Saturday, February 9th, and I play a fireman who finds love for the second time around. He's in his 40s. He's married. His wife passed away. He's sort of focused on his career and his life with his son, and lo and behold, the planets align, and this woman, emotionally falls into his life, and he is lucky enough to find love for a second run at it in his 40s.
You are going back to the fireman. We were just talking. It's weird that it just happened. Backdraft was just on HBO or Showtime or something. I don't know, maybe about 5 days ago, and I happened to catch it, which you, of course, were in, and I forgot. I haven't seen that movie in years. That was a really good movie.
Yeah, that was a great time. I worked on that for about 5 or 6 months in Chicago, and I made some really close friends with the Chicago Fire Department, and of course with some of the cast that I worked with. Kurt Russell and I are still very good friends, and Jason Gedrick and I live. I'm at my house right now in Santa Barbara. He lives a couple of blocks from me, and of course De Niro and Scott Glenn and the rest of Ronnie Howard. It was a great group.
Is it sometimes sad after you get done wrapping up a movie that you've been living with these people, not in the same room or whatever, but I mean you've been working together with people for 6 months, and then it's just over one day? Is that tough sometimes?
Well, not the way it was in the old days, because in the old days I had no children. I wasn't with my wife China, and I remember being on the sets of films, working with Andy Garcia and working with Richard Gere, and like I said, working with Kurt Russell, and I worked with Oliver Platt on Flatliners and Kevin Bacon, thinking like, these guys are my new best buddies, and we're going to be like lifelong friends, and this is going to last forever. And then you do 3 or 4 or 5 more films, and you realize how it really works. I mean, people get off, they wrap the picture, they pack up their hotel, they go back to the airport, and they go home to their lives. And now my life includes a 23-year relationship with China Phillips and a 12, 11, and 8-year-old. So, it is a very, very unusual situation when you work with people on film and television, but it's not as hard as it used to be. I remember very distinctly being on Internal Affairs and thinking that Richard Gere was going to be like my new best buddy, and then Richard Gere sort of like went off into the sunset and went on with his life, and I was like, well, maybe I'll be friends with him again if I work on another film with him or something, and that never happened. And I see him, our paths cross, but literally I see Richard, every 6 or 7 years we run into each other at an event or in a restaurant somewhere. But it is strange, because you work with this group and you do everything. You go up to some little town outside of Calgary, and there's 3 restaurants and 1 movie theater, and you're either on the set working together, or you're in the hotel, or you're in the same restaurants, in the same bar throwing darts. So you break down the walls of intimacy, and you feel very bonded and very close very quickly.
You mentioned that you've been married to China Phillips for 23 years. That's extraordinary, not only for a Hollywood marriage, but just in any marriage these days. Is there any sort of, asking for a secret is sort of cheesy, but what is the key to be able to make that work? And obviously, you guys have gone through some ups and downs. She filed for divorce and then took it back a few hours later, I think. What do you think has made it last while so many, not only in Hollywood, but just marriage in general, people just give up so quickly these days?
Yeah, it's easier if you marry a really hot, really talented pop star.
Yeah, that would make it a lot easier on all of us guys, Billy.
No, you said it. It definitely has its its ups and downs. I went through a patch like 2 or 3 years ago where I had for the first time, I had a rough stretch for about 5 or 6 months. It was really, but I got to tell you, throughout all of it, I was very, I was stressed out and I was saddened by it, but I was also very sort of calm and confident that it was going to work out because I kept seeing the stuff that was going on in our marriage. I still saw the good outweighing the bad in an avalanche, and I just had to get my wife to see that, to understand that the good far outweighed the bad. And like you said, you just can't run away, even if there are no kids. If there's no kids, you gotta, you have to go to the mat and fight to save the relationship. And if you have 3 kids, then you have to, the same thing times a factor of 1,000. You just can't walk away. And I don't like the fact that, especially in American culture, with the messages that they're inundated with about relationships and marriage through film and television, they think that it's okay to just sort of cut and run, and that marriage is like a disposable institution, and that this is something that you can walk away from. Don't get me wrong; some marriages never should have started in the first place.
Yeah.
Some should have and didn't work, and there's really very little or nothing that can save them. But 60% of marriages in the United States end up in divorce, and with the tools that we have at our disposal today, especially if you've got some intelligence and some strength, and there's resources that you can exploit to your advantage to try to leverage those resources through counseling and stuff like that to try and to save your relationship. I think that half the marriages that end in divorce could be saved easily.
Well, that's what I find.
It could be a lot higher.
What I find amazing about your situation, and it's got to be so weird to come on and talk about stuff because it'd be like if you just start asking me questions about my personal life. But what I find amazing is that your wife filed for divorce and it blindsided you. That's my understanding. It's what I read and whatever. If you take. How much you can actually believe of stuff that you read, but it blindsided you. And I just thought to myself, what's interesting about that is that the communication for two people that were married had broken down that far that you were blindsided by it, that you had no idea.
No, I mean, we were in the middle of a tough patch for like 4 months. So I knew we were having problems. I was not interpreting it as we were in trouble. But I'm happy to talk about it because anything that I can do or share with anybody that helps them, gain some insight into their own struggles or their own troubled situation, I'm happy to do that. I mean, a lot of people look at their marriage after 7, 9, 11, 17 years, and they think because they don't quote unquote feel the same, or the love isn't as intense, or the love ebbs and flows, or it just doesn't feel, one day it feels different than the other. That doesn't mean that it's wrong or that it's broken or that you're in trouble or that it should be over. That means you're together for 17 years, and that's a very natural part of the process. Love at 18 years together doesn't feel like love at 18 months together. And when people understand that, they're going to understand that, there's a lot of distracting, kids, and you have to. You walk down the aisle and you put your hand on a Bible and you made a commitment to one another, and you just can't cut and run at the first sign of like, hey, this doesn't. What happens? You get a divorce, you go out, you meet somebody else, and you have this torrid relationship where for 6 months you recapture what you felt for the first time in 7th or 8th grade. And you fall in love and you tear your clothes off and you have this incredible sex. And after you have sex about 5 or 6 times, that sort of subsides. You come back down to earth, and then you turn around and you're like, "What have I done?"
Then you want to get back together with the original chick again.
The greatest accomplishment of your life, this person that you built this 15, 20-year relationship with, and you built this wonderful family. I can't tell you how many times divorced parents get together at some sort of recital for their kids or school graduation, and they look across at their ex-wife with their new boyfriend, and they're all leaving together to go to some restaurant together, and their heart starts to flutter and say,
Sure.
"Oh my goodness, what have I done? I've made the biggest mistake in my life." And you have to fight through and find your way to the other side.
Billy Baldwin is going to be on Be My Valentine. It premieres Saturday at 9 p.m. on the Hallmark Channel. I have a question for you that I've always been curious about. Some of these guys, you'll read stories about method acting, and Daniel Day-Lewis, for instance, is one that comes to mind, and how he was in character in that Lincoln movie, even just walking around the set or whatever. I don't know if that's how you work or if you've ever worked with anyone like that, but I mean, is that even possible to do? And is it possible to take someone seriously in a situation like that? I mean, I just don't even know, putting myself into that situation, I don't know how I would respond to a guy who walks around like he's Abraham Lincoln.
I think I totally love and respect that people do that, and I've for someone, I have friends that played cops, and they walked around the streets of New York with a concealed weapon on, and they left the holster on when they went to bed at night with like a loaded gun. So you can cross certain boundaries, and it can be excessive, and it could also be, if you're doing it off the set and when you go home, it could be very emotionally draining. It could be emotionally exhausting. But I have plenty of actor friends that are method actors that do it, while they're on the set, while they're rehearsing, while the camera's running, in between takes, during their lunch break, while they're on the set. If they go home at night and they get in the car, there's a process that they go through that they sort of decompress and allow themselves for sort of re-entry, with their wife and children. And they're every bit the method actor that, say, Sean Penn or my brother Alec or Daniel Day-Lewis. And of course, there's other techniques of acting. There's Meisner, and there's other techniques of acting that are different, but certainly as effective. Definitely.
So if they said, if Spielberg said, Billy, we want you to be in this movie Lincoln, and so you're there on set, and Daniel Day-Lewis is walking around, you would refer to him as, "Hey, Abe," or "Mr. President," or whatever. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out how it works on movie sets, because that to like a normal guy who's not around that sort of stuff, that sounds that would make me uncomfortable if they wanted me to refer to him as Mr. President.
Yeah, but if you had been around, if you had done this long enough and been around it long enough, and literally, if you were 19 years old, 20 years old, and had taken a half a dozen acting classes,
it's normal to you, yeah.
The awkwardness of it. One of my brothers did a film once, and the actress that he was working with, he had to break up with her in the scene, and when he broke up with her, she ran off the set and ran down the block, and she disappeared, and they couldn't find her for 4 hours, and they found her in a doorway, curled up in the corner, weeping and sobbing and crying, because she was so distraught and devastated over the fact that the great love of her life had broken up with her.
that's wow. I guess it's,
they couldn't get her. They couldn't get her back to the set for like 6. I don't even think she worked the rest of that day.
I guess when you are, I guess it's normal in the acting world to do that kind of stuff. Billy Baldwin going to be in the Hallmark television movie Be My Valentine. It premieres this Saturday, February 9th. At 9 p.m. on the Hallmark Channel. Billy, I appreciate you coming on. Good luck with this project. And do you already have stuff in the works already that's going to be coming out in the future?
Yeah, I have a film called Sexy Evil Genius that comes out real soon in the next, I think, in April, and another film called The Stranger Inside that comes out right around the same time. And I'm doing a couple runs on a few different TV shows that are coming up, and I'm producing a couple political pieces. So look out for that.
All right, Billy Baldwin, thank you for coming on, my man.
Thanks for having me. It's fun to talk to you.
Thank you.